Welcome back to Seattle Sucks, a podcast about hating the city we love. So, Brian and Greg, I've got something that I want to ask you before we start taping. Is that okay?
Shoot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're not recording right now, Colin, so go for it.
Okay, great. Because I definitely don't want this on the episode. I've mentioned what I've been working on to people in my life, like after Greg called me out for not having any hobbies. And the thing that I've started doing, they've really not appreciated. I mean, I've been hearing you've lost your mind. This is too far, even for you. And somebody insinuating maybe I was like playing God, which I mean, like, duh, that's what science is. But I'm still not quite sure if what they're saying has at least a kernel of truth. So I'm going to tell you what I've been up to, and can you help me out?
Hey, we're here for you, Colin. You can run anything by us.
I live to judge.
Okay. So as you both know, since we've covered it on the show, like just a little bit, but I want to definitely spell it out in case you forgot. But it's one of those things in life where, like, if you blink, you'll miss it, and that's it. This year, like 2020, it was an election year. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Remind me.
Yeah. I think there was an election for city council or something. I don't know. I don't pay attention to such things.
It was very surprising, and I was shocked to learn that in retrospect. But I mean, I guess there's always the next one. So I've been hearing a lot of liberal laments to the tune of like, people are too stupid to vote. Essentially, they might use a euphemism like uninformed, or they vote against their interests or whatever. But like, really, they're just saying some large portion of Americans, probably the majority, lack the necessary brain power for a republic to operate at its apex.
It's a real problem, Colin.
It is.
Checks out.
All right. So it's an election year, and we know turnout was high, or we've been told that. And you both know now that Biden is president-elect, and that now I can lean into my new lifestyle, which is how much I fucking love science. So
it's good that science is back in office, my friends. Is it not?
That's right. That's exactly right. Because I mean, I thought, hey, God is dead, again. So stem cell futures trading up. Most likely I'll be able to pick the eye color of my next baby at a minimum.
Next 3 or 4 babies.
Yeah, the eye color, right? Wink.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I was thinking. Right now is the time to create the supreme electorate, the perfect voter.
Go on.
Okay, so this is what I've been up to. I started with a little bit of sourdough starter because, it's like cultured. Then I added this old library card I found in my wallet, and one of the print copies of the Gray Lady with, all those COVID deaths on the cover. Because I want the perfect voter to be informed, obviously, but also know about our recent history.
Then know the importance of the press freedom.
Exactly. The Fourth Estate.
Yes.
Then I added some hot sauce, to achieve a near perfect blend. And I borrowed somebody's Notorious RBG t-shirt and threw that in for good measure too. I didn't really want them to be familiar with television at all, but I couldn't help it, so I tossed in an old West Wing collection on VHS, and then and then finally there's a little bit of my own DNA, because you just got to put your own stamp on your creations. So I know this was a little bit long-winded, but I've got 2 questions for you, which is this biological experimentation really beyond the pale? And Greg, since you come from a long line of bread makers, do you know why my perfect voter isn't rising in the oven? I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong.
Sometimes you get a perfect voter. Sometimes you get an inanimate golem. I don't know. You just have to keep trying.
It's finally a golem that we can get behind, though. Yeah, I mean, this sounds great, Colin. And,
sounds like they are the best of us.
They're the perfect voter.
Cool. When I think we can all agree that we fucking love science and we fucking love this idea.
Hell yeah.
And we love voting.
Yeah. Voting for science, everybody.
Well, speaking of science, guys, I don't know if you heard the news this week, but Comrade Inslee has shut down all of human movement in the state of Washington in honor of Comrade Stalin's birthday. It's a dark day. It's a dark day. A dark day for freedom. A dark day for America. A dark day for apples and apple pies.
Those
How
are
are
all
you guys-
things I hate, so
How are
it's
you
a bright
coping?
day for me.
I'm coping terribly. My butt still hurts where Daddy Inslee spanked me for being a bad boy.
It hurt you worse than it did him.
That's true. I went out to get my paper this morning. Of course, the issue of the Seattle Times that's delivered to my driveway every day. And I didn't wear a mask, and Governor Inslee had me drone striked. Drone strike. I'm dead now.
Wow. What's it like
Well-
on that side of paradise?
Was it really Inslee, or was it a drone from some other partner in the coalition of the willing, or whatever the fuck it's called?
Gavin Newsom flying to French Laundry.
Well, as people might have gathered, we're talking about the new totalitarian, I think we can say with confidence, measures that Inslee has taken to try and combat the faux-demic that currently we're told is ravaging the state. A lot of people are dying, guys. It's really bad. It's really bad. But Colin, I think you said you pulled up some of these because I mean people in the state are really up in arms about this, and I think you had pulled up the new suffocating restrictions that we have.
Yeah. So, this was yesterday. Well, there
Greg,
were a few-
I asked Colin to do it.
Oh God.
Just joking. Just joking. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, buddy.
So yesterday, with several days ahead of tease, it was announced, Jay Inslee. So this is from Jay Inslee's Medium page. Governor Jay Inslee today announced a 4-week statewide set of restrictions in response to the recent rapid spread of the COVID-19 virus in Washington and across the country. The new restrictions come as Washington sees consistent increasing daily case counts with over 2,000 cases a day over the weekend and an average cases in the state doubling over the past 2 weeks. Restrictions start taking place Monday, which is today at midnight, basically. And let's see, indoor gatherings prohibited with people outside of your household unless you quarantine for 14 days prior or 7-day quarantine and a negative COVID-19 test. Unless you are a business doing work. Let's make that very clear. Restaurants and bars closed for indoor service. Outdoor dining and to-go service permitted following current guidelines. Table size limited to 5 for outdoor dining. So basically, we're getting back to the no indoor service, which many restaurants had never come back to because there was still a pandemic on, or had done so in very, very limited numbers anyway. It's not like it was like an all-out bonanza without any guidance from the state, basically. Retail. That all goes for, let's see, restaurants, blah, 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 blah. In-store retail, grocery stores, and personal services are limited to 25% of occupancy and must be close and must close any. That doesn't make sense. So basically, that's not even as strict a lockdown as there was Like that makes it sound like personal services. That makes it sound like that's like hair salons and shit. Like you can still have 25% instead of them just being completely closed like they were like in April.
Yeah, well, my wife had pointed out when we were sort of joking about this earlier that this is all in, for the most part, the level 2.0 COVID restrictions that we've been under for months now.
Yeah.
And, which raises the question of what's different about this, but also raises the question if grocery stores can only be at 25% capacity. I mean, just to use that as one example, there's no enforcement on any of this stuff. Like, nobody's counting people at the grocery store,
I mean, they do it. I mean, Trader Joe's has never stopped doing that.
That's funny because QFC and Fred Meyer never started doing that.
Yeah. They all did only recently stop sanitizing your carts.
Yeah, they gave up on that.
They all gave up on that like 2 weeks ago, just in time for this to come back, and I'm guessing they're going to start again. But no, Trader Joe's never stopped counting. But they did start. And then okay, next bullet here, religious services. So, limited to 25% occupancy or no more than 200 people, no choir, band, or ensemble performances, but soloists are permitted. No congregational singing.
No.
Face coverings required at all times. That's going to be a fun one. That's I mean, I assume that was also in the phase 2 stuff, right? Like
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that much has really changed from basically nothing that wasn't in effect last week seems to have gone into effect this week, other than the dining. That seems to be the one thing that's changed.
Yeah.
Just no more indoor dining. Which
fitness,
seemed like an obvious mistake to begin with, gotta say.
Yeah, like that obviously is part of why we're here now at this point. Fitness facilities and gyms closed for indoor operations, outdoor activities permitted, limited to outdoor gathering restrictions of 5 people. And man, if you are paying a gym to work out outside, I don't know I don't get you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I love to do my squats with my large triangular weights outside in the rain.
Yeah.
Outside the
and then
goals.
pay for the privilege. I mean, you can do that by yourself, like anywhere in a parking lot or a park or something. So yeah, basically, nothing new except you can't. I haven't fucking sat in a restaurant all year. Like all the restaurants, I haven't. None of the restaurants I get takeout from have started doing indoor dining. You know, I think when you get outside of Seattle, I know this is not the case. Like they've all been open for a long time for indoor dining, but like how many places in Seattle were really seating people? I know that some were, but for the last few months, but
well, I know outside of Seattle too. I mean, like just a good chunk of everything outside Seattle too is just not follow is not followed any of the rules, right? Like so, the fact they've had indoor dining is not particularly shocking. But yeah, it's this interesting thing because all the restaurants I get takeout from, Burger King, McDonald's, Carl's Jr. I'll know it. No indoor dining.
Yep. The Inner Bay Taco Time, those doors are permanently closed, man. They're welded shut. You got to go through that drive-through. Try to do it on foot one day. Didn't work out.
But yeah, I think the big question is so the current increase in COVID cases is the biggest since they've been recording them, right? Yeah. And the governor's response, which by the way has been praised as like a bold response compared to other governors in the country, is literally just keep doing the thing that we're doing that literally led to the to this current spike. Just maybe don't eat indoors anymore. Like, don't go to restaurants.
Yeah, totally weak shit. As it has been all along from the beginning. Too little, too late. Totally performative bullshit. I mean, yeah, it's good they're closing down restaurants because we obviously can't. Like, it is getting people killed, but it's still going to be look. It's the same story we've told all year. This country, including Washington State, including Seattle, is just an abomination. Just an embarrassment to the human race. We should all, we all deserve to die for this. So it's really good this is happening.
Mm-hmm. You know, it's also when we talk about like outside of Seattle, like nobody's following any of these rules or whatever. I don't even mean to say that in like a snooty way, like a snooty, I'll look at those people over there way. It's because of this sort of mealy mouth response
Yeah,
where
absolutely.
it's kind of like everything's just a vague suggestion that, by the way, after the governor gives the order, it has to be interpreted through like 8 different people. Like, you know, like he's some sort of, was it the Greek prophets that were on the mountain, right? And you have to like send
Yeah,
an
it's an
interpreter
oracle.
just to even like figure it out. So, you know, that already creates a problem. Then the fact that it has a million, like it's Swiss cheese full of loopholes, right? And it's obviously not working because everybody's just
and
still getting sick, right?
there are absolutely like extreme flagrant contradictions
Yeah.
in the system, which is you in your personal life, these are the restrictions because these do not interfere as heavily with capital as would you going to fucking work, which you still have to do, which tells you'd be stupid to take it seriously, frankly.
Yeah.
Right? Like knowing if you're just a person going about your day, and you're like the really the main information you knew was the governor says you can't gather with large groups in private or go out to restaurants, but you still keep going to your job every day. Like
Yeah.
you'd think, well, this is bullshit. This is bullshit, which is why people all over the country still don't believe this is real. We saw that tweet from that nurse in Montana, was it, or
South Dakota.
South Dakota,
Yeah.
about like people like with their dying breaths, like cursing her for lying for like uh gaslighting them about their own COVID diagnosis and like how they don't believe it's real. And like, yeah, that's what you get when top to bottom, like this has been so badly bungled. But that's the thing. It's not really much better here. There's this performative nod, right? Yeah, sure. Some places, like in South Dakota, they never locked down even a little. They never closed restaurants. They said like, you'll do what you feel and wear a mask or don't, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, yeah, it's bad. But like this is still an embarrassment.
Like you said, I mean, this is part of the embarrassment, but the work one is such an interesting one just because everybody I know, including myself, is staring down the barrel of mass layoffs, right? And so it's one of those things too of like, yeah, people can still go to work or still have to go to work or whatever. Also, if you don't go to work, just consider yourself pretty much laid off at the beginning of the worst economic crisis in 100 years. You
Yeah.
know, so all the pressure is on continuing to put people together in small spaces, right? And you know, it's like, I'm sorry, like the spread of COVID and stuff like that, like its continued sort of existence in the community and stuff like that, is because we all keep going to fucking work and giving it to each other.
Yeah. Well, like I'm working this week on a
Yeah.
production of people coming in from like 7 different countries. Now, is that like a major contradiction? Maybe not in the way it is for most people, because the contradiction that makes no sense in most people's lives is, oh, I'm told I can't do this stuff in my personal life, but I still need to go to work. Well, it's different at my job and some other people's where it's, these lockdowns started coming down. And so they called the state film office and were like, can we still do this? And they were like, yeah, you just need to get rapid COVID tested of everybody involved. And they were like, oh, yeah, well, we're doing that anyway. Great. So that's what's happening. And that, like the last big job I did, everyone just had to get a COVID test with like, rapid screenings. Like the 2 jobs ago, I did one, it was like, I knew literally in 15 minutes, like, cause this stuff is available and we could be doing that for everybody. And the people who actually have it could be quarantining. this has been the case from the very beginning, and it's certainly the case almost a fucking year later now.
Mhm.
But it's only deployed in surface of capital when it needs to be, because the way we've set this up, basically denying that this is the problem it is, while in certain states like Washington, like hand waving to science, like, yeah, we believe it, we're going to wear a mask and we're going to do some performative shutdown bullshit, but you're still going to go to work. Most workers don't need to get a test to do that, and they're not being made available in that way. But when you want to do something out of the ordinary or involving people who matter,
Mhm.
you as will once again my job this week will involve human beings who matter, and is an out of the ordinary thing. It's not like an ongoing concern, like where the same people show up to work the same place every day. It's people coming together for like to put on a little circus. It's ad hoc in that way. So okay, everyone just gets a test and it can proceed. But so that's where the contradiction lies there, but either way, the whole thing is riddled with contradictions that are just, people are reacting to in the way that makes sense from where they're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that here I'm gonna read this just amazing thing that I saw or we found a couple weeks ago. This is from the Brick Saloon in Roslyn. This is like right on their webpage, right? Right on the front page of their webpage. There's a state order to wear a mask. If you have a documented medical condition that prevents you from wearing a mask, you are exempt from this order. We have employees with this exemption. We respect our staff and customers. If you have a reason for a medical exemption due to HIPAA and the Fourth Amendment, we cannot and will not question you. Therefore, if we see you without a mask, we will assume you have a medical condition or state federal listed exemption. The enforcement of masks is left up to the local law enforcement. You can guess what side they're on. And we will not be enforcing customers to wear masks. If you do not feel safe, do not come in. So, anyways,
Perfect. Yeah.
this is
Well, that was left
this
open to them, right?
yeah, and this is the brainworm that was allowed to be created because of how awfully this pandemic has been handled. And handled from the beginning, not by just Trump, handled from the beginning by every governor, by every public official in this country, right? Including Jay Inslee, right? And it's because they fucked this up so bad that we're now in this situation. I actually don't think there's any way to recover this. Like, there's gonna be no way to convince people to do what actually needs to be done in order to stop this from spreading around and around. And the thing is like, why do the people in Vietnam not equally believe that this is some sort of elaborate conspiracy to steal their freedom or whatever? And the answer is because when their state acted, it fucking worked, right? And you can't argue with results.
Well, you know what? The results
around the world and nobody's dying.
Results are that's an epistemological question as well. I think you can. I'm going to push back on that because I think you could change things even now at this point in this country. If you, although it's not really possible. I mean, theoretically, like in a perfect scenario, if you had, let's say we'd elected Bernie Sanders or some other detached political force, something not wedded to the political establishment. If Trump was
Elizabeth
being
Warren.
elected, no. If Trump had been elected in 2020 instead of 2016, for example, and came in wanting to really do something about COVID, somebody outside of the system and then did something and effectively like put real effort into things. When you see something actually being done, that has an effect. Like when you see in your own life, like, oh shit, if you saw it in every, for every like neighborhood of people, if there was in a week everywhere in America, a pop-up drive-through testing facility popped up with guys in hazmat suits, and you were told you need to get a test this week, everyone, the whole country, people would get whatever they thought, whatever conspiracy theories they might come up with, and whatever fringes like interpret it in whatever way, the vast majority of people would have a common undeniable experience that something was fucking going on.
Yeah. No, that's
and-
exactly the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if the state had acted decisively, had acted quickly, had been clear about what it was doing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
stuff
Well,
like
I
that,
mean, you could still do
like,
that now.
people
That's what
would
I'm saying.
have faith in it. I mean, it's going to be so hard now because so much bad faith has been built.
Oh, for
in
sure.
because of this, right? But
That's what I mean.
yeah, I mean,
even even if a Biden administration did that now, it wouldn't. It would be hard, but it would still. I think it would still go a long way. You know?
Sure.
But yeah,
and yeah, because I mean, the
so
thing is
muddled
that,
and confused now. It's been so politicized, to use that awful word. It's so many like elaborate labyrinths have been constructed around it.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is with I remember when people were still passing around like the results of like the response in Vietnam and South Korea and China and stuff like that. People started in the US started to create these elaborate theories. Like we all became Orientalists and we're, digging what is it about the Asian mind or whatever, right? We all got our calipers out. But the reality is like, no, the state just acted decisively and clearly in all those countries. So people, weren't, people didn't have the time to come up with their own insane theories about why this disaster just keeps happening. Whereas in the United States, everything was muddled, everything was confused, and most importantly, everything was completely ineffective.
Yeah,
and so
and inherently contradictory.
Yeah, and it was such it's a repeat of the absolute failure of Obamacare, in that Obamacare passed, everybody's health care costs continued going through the roof, right? Everybody's healthcare continued to get worse year by year, even though they had to pay more money for it. And then you had all these people saying, "See, this is why you can't have state-run healthcare." Right? Because we had Obamacare, and now look at it. And it's like, it's the very particular way that neoliberalism muddies the water when they make decisions, or better yet, don't make decisions, right? And the way they muddy the water and blend the private and the state sector, it convinces people that the state is incapable of anything, or if it is capable of something, it's only some nefarious conspiracy to, steal your adrenochrome or whatever.
Yeah. Well, like, forget actually doing anything about actual COVID. Like, we're not even going to do anything about the economic fallout of not doing anything about COVID, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, there was a piece in the Seattle Times about restaurants that you found, right, Colin?
Yeah, so Bethany Jean Clement wrote something this week, actually yesterday, interviewing a couple Seattle restaurant owners and talking about recent closures, relatively high profile closures like Tilth, I guess, and Randy's.
Randy's.
Yeah, no. It's gone after 40 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what Randy's is. It's
Randy's,
a great
it's
name.
down it's down by Boeing on the marginal side.
Yeah.
It's the old diner that's all aviation themed, like airplane models and pictures and shit.
Oh, shit, I would like to see that. Well, too late now.
Yeah, it was profiled on Vanishing Seattle, so you can go check out that post.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, live through it vicariously there. But most of the thrust of that article was definitely about the difficulties all of these restaurant owners were facing. And there were two people interviewed, and we're not going to read the whole thing, but essentially they both, before they made comments, more or less said, I didn't really want to open, but I kind of felt like I had to. So there are two quotes, one from each person that was interviewed. So I'll just read those because they're very, very short. So here's the first one. Noting that no one in the restaurant industry has the option of working from home, she says, we really need help from the government for small businesses as well as for individuals. And then the second one was, the only part I'm upset about is there's not another stimulus package or more local government help, she says. A lot of restaurants can't get rent relief, can't take any more loans. We have not seen the worst of this yet.
Yeah, and I mean,
right about that.
Yeah, and that first part too is, I mean, there has just been a willful like non-discussion of the fact that most people in the like who work can't work from home. You
Yeah.
know, like their job structurally cannot be done from their home. And there's just been a willful desire to ignore that. Or I guess tell people to learn to code, right? Was the Rahm Emanuel's solution. 360 million coders. You know, that makes total sense. But yeah, I mean, you know, this is a country where an enormous chunk, the majority of the workforce is in the service industry, and it's a face-to-face occupation for the vast majority of them. And it's like, how are you supposed to do that from home? Like, if you're a bartender, how do you do that from home? If you're a waiter, how do you do that from home? And there's no consideration.
Yeah, not to mention also the fact that with all of this growth in these service sector jobs, which has been happening for probably over a decade, is that the people that would be frequenting these places are all working from home. And so now, like, and this is not a profound insight, but all these people who are working those service sector jobs are just servicing the people holed up in their castles,
Mm-hmm.
um, which is bad.
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets back to one of the points that we made when this whole thing started, and we were speculating about how bad it would be, and you know, on the doomiest side of our speculations was that this was just going to be an excuse to essentially like genocide poor people.
Yeah.
And I think what we're finding through all the actions of the state and things like that is that that is absolutely the case. That's why no consideration is given to any of these people. I mean, when we interviewed Marina a while back, and she talked about working at the bar she was working at, and we talked about the service industry under COVID and stuff. It was very clear that the main danger was of restaurant attendees giving the staff COVID.
Yeah.
Right. And that, of course, as the staff, you have no choice but to be there, right? It's not like you're, oh, I'm here just because I love fucking, slinging beers at, people, tourists from Florida or whatever, right? You're there because you have to pay fucking rent, and, you know, you're stuck there, right? You've essentially been trapped in this, death machine, this pandemic death machine.
Well, yeah, like Greg is saying, the work didn't stop. And we've seen, especially for restaurant workers, all of these bizarre incantations that have been done to try to accommodate them from stopping. Like, I'm sure you both saw those tents, essentially, those outdoor
Mhm.
bubbles where you could eat. I mean, the lengths that we are going to try to keep these things operating is pretty absurd.
Because God forbid we just pay those employees to stay home and
Yeah.
pay like
Yeah. When-
every other country in the developed world is doing some form of on a mass scale. We
Yeah,
can't
and
even manage to do it
and I think that
for service industry we don't really need to survive, Like we can all
Mhm.
eat. We can all eat takeout. You know what I mean? Like we can do that. Like the owners can come into their restaurants and cook it and hand it out to people, and the servers can stay home and just get paid to live, because this is a once in 100-year nightmare that we're not going to survive otherwise. But no, we can't do that here. That's just completely off the table. And it's so funny. Like we're going to sit here and talk about really like the relief we do want, or how we're not getting enough, and it's like fighting over the scraps. So like also this week, a couple days ago, David Croman published in Crosscut this piece on the headline is "Washington Considers Narrowing Its Eviction Moratorium." That very powerful and robust eviction moratorium that was really providing relief for Washingtonians in this crisis. Those people who were just accruing massive rental debts after having been laid off in COVID with no hope of ever really having a job again for several years.
Well, it's worth noting too that it wasn't that they just allowed the landlords to let the debt accrue, which was absolutely criminal. They allowed the landlords to start charging penalties on that debt accruement as well, right?
Yeah.
So basically, you could end up owing 10 times your rent. 10
Well,
times
many
what
people
the
will, because this is not
yeah.
going to be resolved. People will carry this years down the road because it's going to follow them after
Mhm.
they're evicted, and the landlord will, according to the law, need to be made whole.
Yeah.
Not the renter who was kicked out on the street. But God forbid, the and the joke of it is too, like, the law will come down on the landlord being made whole, and to that effect, the renters who run up this debt will be hounded by it, probably, you know, all things being equal, for the rest of their lives, right? Like, because nothing really, we don't really imagine anything substantial is really going to change in this country. What's the joke about that is the landlords are not going to be made whole. A lot of those debts are never going to be paid back, but it is going to, so that money is just never going to come the landlord's way uh in whole, right? But it is going to ruin the lives of those renters for the rest of their lives, right? As their
Mhm.
as like their wages are garnished to like pay down the interest on this shit forever.
Yeah, or maybe some of them will, because remember when Seattle passed the rent protections, there was that clause that they had to set up a little slush fund basically for landlords to make sure that they were able to recuperate some of their losses.
Well, yeah, I mean, the landlords will
Well,
probably
that
actually
fucking
just be
sucks.
yeah, I mean, the landlords will probably just be bailed out ultimately, is what's going to end up happening. But that will have, just like in the housing crisis, the banks being bailed out had zero effect on what you owed the
Yeah.
bank for your house.
Yeah.
It's going to have zero effect on what you owe your landlord for your rent, right? And, the landlords are, of course, going to demand to be paid twice. And so you're just going to be forever fucked, right? Keep in mind, this is when the, eviction moratorium was at its strongest, and this Crosscut article is suggesting that maybe that's not the case anymore.
Yeah. So now, more than 8 months into the moratorium, Governor Jay Inslee's office is considering scaling back the reach of the eviction ban without any new federal resources on the horizon, and as the landlords bend under the pandemic's weight. A work group of landlord and tenant representatives, I'm sure, is mulling whether to narrow the eviction pause. The to narrow the eviction pause. Only to tenants who can show their finances have been hurt as a direct result of COVID. That's right. We're gonna means test this shit because we're gonna make you jump through hoops. We're gonna make it just another thing that you just throw your hands up and don't even bother, right?
Yeah.
It was all you could already be taken to court and like, oh fuck, god damn it. Okay, but get ready for this shit. It's a change that could address some landlords' anecdotes of, quote, elective non-payers, unquote. Those who the landlord believes can pay but are choosing not to. Or, in other words, heroes. Seattle Sucks listeners, perhaps? Because that's basically the advice we gave, which is just like, yeah, just stop paying and like roll the dice on that. It's better than you're going to be out that money if you pay it, right? So
Yeah.
the
Yeah. And if you
adjustment the
if you
adjustment
know you can't pay, just don't pay.
yeah. The adjustment would also bring Washington's moratorium more in line with other West Coast states, as well as the federal one from the CDC, etc. So basically, there was more of a blanket. It was already pretty weak, right? The eviction moratorium because all it really meant was that like legal eviction proceedings were sort of slowed down, but people were still being informally evicted all the time,
Mm-hmm.
or just collapsing under the weight of not being able to pay their rent, and just instead of electing to not pay, as the landlords claim, just basically electing to become homeless.
Yeah.
And knowing that there's no relief, they still owe the fucking money. And now they're just going to take away even that from most people, so that even to qualify for this, you've got to like, who the fuck? I mean, whatever. First of all, it'll work the way all this shit works. It's like it's hard to do, and it's actually hard to qualify for. Blah blah blah. You got to show like whatever. I mean, I'm glad it's not. It's not that hard for me to qualify for like the PUA unemployment benefits. I just have to check some boxes, but I mean, like, this is going to be harder because that's like a positive thing of me. Like, I'm going to get that money. These are the boxes I have to check. This is
Yeah.
like, how do I get this landlord to stop like threatening to put me out on the street? When really, it's not even that. It's like, you can't pay the rent. You feel like you start feeling like, oh, I need to get out of here because I'm just like a debt is just accruing at a massive rate.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it.
What I think the thing is too is that it's showing that there's this fundamental asymmetry of power in the landlord tenant relationship, right? And all these loopholes are made to further that asymmetry, right? And we saw this actually with the way the holes and the more eviction moratorium have evolved over the course of this. At one point, one of the holes was, of course, that if the landlord wanted to sell the property, they could evict the tenant, right? And then after allowing that for a few months, they then came back and had to be like, all right, if the landlord wants to sell the property is evicting the tenant because they want to sell the property, they have to at least, like swear an affidavit that they actually intend to sell the property, which means that all these landlords are just fucking lying and just say, because we know fucking landlords are fucking liars, right? Because why wouldn't they? Because this is about profit for them, right? So whatever the easiest path to the most profit is the path they're going to take, right? They're parasites, the classic parasite, right?
Right, and you can,
and
well,
so
yeah, I mean the definition. I mean that that's another word for rent seeker.
But the thing is that this additional steps, right, of like you have to prove that you're affected by COVID or whatever, this is just additional financial output that the tenant's going to have to put out, right? Money they don't have by definition since they're already facing eviction, right? This is additional time that the tenant's going to have to put out, right? Again, time they don't have. This is additional legal work they're going to have to put out, right? Whereas the landlord doesn't have to do shit. So again, what the state is saying is that the landlord, the person who has all the money and power in this situation, we're going to ease this process for you. We're going to make it extremely simple and streamlined. For the tenant who has no money and power in this situation, we're going to make this process extremely fucking difficult for you. And if you fuck up even once in this entire process, we're sending a sheriff over to either kill you or throw your ass out. And like, that's the fucking reality.
Well, listen, like this is yet another like contradiction that's just being more and more pronounced under COVID. Who knows what could happen if a system continues to prioritize rent-seeking parasite landowners over people's basic need to have a roof over their head. When you continually when an entire system just crushes people into the ground and holds like housing hostage over them to turn them into, serfs basically for their landlord. God knows where that could lead if those contradictions continue to build.
And I think the thing to sort of bring up too, right, is of course the question would come up, all of our very right thinking listeners, right, or correct with all of the correct ideas are going to think, it's crazy that this clearly awful program, awful on its face, that's designed to essentially throw people out on the street. It's crazy that this would get passed, right? And I think it's one of those things, that it seems contradictory to the idea of actually controlling COVID, right? And I think the idea we have to stress, right, is that the whole response to COVID has been a political project, right? In fact, the non-response to COVID has been a political project. The project is to continue grinding the working class into the fucking dirt and to continue empowering capital. And COVID was instantly recognized as this sort of, a way to put that project on fucking speed, right? And to rapidly advance it. And one way is by radically reframing tenants' rights in a way that assures them they have none. The other thing, too, is that it's a way to eliminate what is seen as a large excess population in this country. But, it's important to see this as a political project to reframe the power balance in the United States to make sure the working class has no power and the capitalist class has all power, right?
Stay tuned. Will mobs of angry renters turn on their landlords and commit mass murder? Who knows?
Yeah, if only there were some historical examples of things that could be done that actually are effective in combating this menace that is landlordism.
Well, listen, this, all of this is now about to exist under a new paradigm, right? It's Biden time. Science is back, as we discussed. Also, good, competent governance, meritocratic rule, uh, you know, uh, the bureaucratic acumen of the Democratic Party hack.
The adults are back in the room, guys.
Yeah.
Any functioning adult.
Yeah. So, well, yeah, we missed that mark, but because we've got someone in their second childhood, coming into the White House, but so this is gonna be this massive test, right? I think a lot of libs are out there feeling like, oh, we're gonna get this under control. They're pretty stoked on that, getting that to rub in the face of the people they don't like or something. I mean, I think that's obviously not going to happen. What we've said all along, we've got Jay Inslee, Jenny Durkin showing us exactly what the neoliberal Democrat is going to do. And Joe Biden has indicated no different than that. I mean, everything we know. Yeah.
He has no plan at this point for doing anything about COVID.
It's going to be shit like this, the bare minimum of encouraging people to actually wear masks again, which done on this haphazard, very culturally hand wavy way about come on guys, let's do the thing we all know is right, from the guy that a quarter of the country thinks is a literal baby eating demon. Yeah, it's already so confused and convoluted and politicized, but at the end of the day, and it is funny. I mean, the people who are it's funny that Chris Rufo and his whole family have COVID. It's funny that people are spitting their dying breath, cursing Joe Biden and the Democratic hoax of COVID. That's funny. Those people suck, but this isn't gonna stop just because the Democrats get in there. That's why I was genuinely, I know you guys were rooting for Trump, but I definitely was I really hope Joe gets in there, because I don't know if this will be enough. I don't know if this will do it. And I'm not talking about sparking the revolution. But the thing we're really salivating for, the thing that I really want to see in my lifetime, is the death of the Democratic Party. And I don't know if this will be enough, but goddamn, you're going to have an administration coming in to rescue the country from what has happened under, the big bad Cheeto man. And they're going to fuck this up really bad. And it's going to blow a lot of people's minds. They'll be they'll have their defenders for sure,
Mhm.
but it's going to blow a lot of people's minds how little a Biden administration does.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
it's going to blow a lot of people's minds. I think, I hope, I don't know, maybe not. And maybe it's not enough to really do anything. Maybe this can still keep grinding on slowly, but this is a like manifold crisis we are in and traveling down, you know? So like, and God knows they're just not going to be able to do anything. They're not going to even want to do anything. They're not going to
mhm.
show they're fighting to do anything. They're going to be standing up there and saying we don't need to do anything. And I think that's going to I think a lot of Democrats are going to look at that and go like, "Holy fuck, these people are abandoning us." And
Well,
this could be at best case scenario like a moment for a split in the Democratic Party of people who are demanding real substantive shit and an entire establishment and media class that's just saying no, we don't need any of that at a moment of crisis where it can't be denied. Will that happen? I don't know, but God, that would be a silver lining to come out of this fucking nightmare, is the death of the Democratic Party. That'd be pretty cool.
yeah, I mean, there's sort of a couple of options, right? Which is that maybe this finally gets it through a large enough portion of the population's head that the Democratic Party should be abandoned and this is all a charade. I mean, the other scary thought is it could cause them, just like they did under Obama and just like Republicans did under Trump, to just retreat into complete fantasy, right? I think for a
Very
significant
possible.
Yeah, I think for a significant portion of Democrats, right, the COVID pandemic literally ended November 5th.
Oh yeah.
And as Biden shows especially as he shows that he's not going to do anything about it, they're just going to forget that it's happening,
But that's
right? And
almost
I'll say they'll just become the mirror image of the Trump people
yeah.
who believe it's a hoax, right?
Well, but see, that to me is almost the opportunity, right? The fact that that the attitude is so clearly like, we've got this shit, and this is something they're not going to be able to pull it off. That is basically what Trump tried to do, being like, this is all going to go away, and just like was basically crossing his fingers, or just believing that he was the center of the universe and he could manifest it like he had everything else in his life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the Dems are doing right now. But they're not going to be able to hide this, actually. They're not going to be able to actually convince, like, it's going to still be present in the lives of everyone in America in a way that the 2008 financial crisis wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And this like economic crisis is also going to be worse at the same time, probably. And I think, yeah, half the Democratic Party at least is going to absolutely become just like, the Trump people and, deny it all. And they'll be the same. It'll, much like so many things were denied and shoved under the rug under Obama. But I think the crisis is bigger. I think it's harder to ignore. And it ain't fucking Barack Obama.
No.
A, you know, in some legitimate ways transformational figure who was also very like eloquent and convincing, and you have who people were really fucking hyped about and did not want to besmirch in any way. And you've got now manifold crises that are a lot harder to ignore at every level of society. uh you've got probably an even worse economic depression, like a full-on depression coming, that we're gonna have like, instead of like the irrational, you know incompetent, crazy baby in the White House, you're gonna have like the fucking Hoover administration 2.0, just like, nope, no, we're just gonna keep on trucking along here. And you're not going to have, there will be people, the narrative they will try to use and a lot of people will buy was like, we can't, we're doing the best we can, they're playing chess out there, they've got a Republican Senate, plus Donald Trump could run again in 4 years, we can't, go too far to the left, it'll scare off all the diehard MAGA people who we need to vote for us in 2024 or something. And they'll do all this shit. But like when it's not, when the crises are so much more visceral and real, and you don't have Barack Obama there, you have this fucking doddering old man that nobody really wanted. I don't know. I think it's an opportunity. I think the safe bet is that nothing will really change. That like we will just continue this steady grind, you know. But I could see the Democratic Party breaking up over this, over its inability to solve this crisis, with a and being a party that wants to do that, you know, like at least a large portion of it. There is a split in the Democratic Party, right? Like uh among people, among its voter base, people who want to do something, who want like, you know, some kind of social democratic programs, and people who don't. It's not like the Republican Party in 1932, which was a, you know, rump party of you know, middle class people who who were, and you know, business types on up to the millionaires who were just really top to bottom didn't want to do these things, and we're not, and we're like, yeah, well, the economy collapses sometimes, that's just how it goes. And that means we, you know, you liquidate everybody, and money returns to its like natural
yeah, to its rightful owner,
to its rightful
as,
owners, right?
Hoover's Treasury
Like,
Secretary has found a saying.
yeah, so like that was the Republican Party then. Like they were all pretty much in agreement. And now that's not what the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is this big coalition of people that has an incredibly wide range of views on this, and there's a large part of it that is, I don't think, going to be able to stomach just fucking sitting around. So that's best case. Not even likely, but just best case.
Sure, yeah. I mean, best case scenario. I mean, one thing is absolutely certain is that the Democratic Party has to go, right? And so, best case scenario is this leads to some sort of fracturing within the party. Although, honestly, you know, I kind of thought them even more openly fucking Bernie in the primaries for a second time. I kind of thought like, oh well, this should lead to some sort of like significant, you know, detachment of this sort of like left in the Democratic Party. And no, all those
It
people
may
voted.
have.
All
It
those people
may
voted
have.
for Biden. I mean, I don't know. I mean, every indication seems to be that all those people voted for Biden, anyways. I mean, there's
But that doesn't
something about
mean
the
that
brain
that wedge is
in
not
this
deepening.
country.
You know?
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what the Democrats do. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, they're going to be facing this enormous crisis. At the same time, they're going to be compelled to use this crisis as a disciplinary moment, right? So it wasn't just a coincidence that Biden said over and over again that he would never give people health care and made that part of his campaign. That was a disciplinary measure, right? That there's no circumstance, including a once in a century pandemic that's going to kill 500,000 fucking people in this country by inauguration day. Uh, even that is not enough to, you know, make the Democrats bend on healthcare as a major source of profit, right? And as a profit center as opposed to an actual like public service, right? That they won't bend on that. And so that was disciplinary, right? And you know, a lot of the Bernie people went and voted for Biden anyways, right? So obviously it worked. And I think that there's going to be a lot of what we're going to get from the Biden administration is discipline, labor discipline, right? You think that you deserve, you know, a wage that allows you to live in anything other than utter poverty? Guess what, motherfucker? No, you don't. You know, like that's what we're gonna get. You know, and it'll be interesting to see what Americans do with that, because I don't know. I mean, so far it seems that there's no level of indignity that like Americans aren't willing to stoop to. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, overall as a country, yeah, I think so. But I think my hope would be that this mounting crisis, I mean, coming after everything that's come before with the Democratic Party, makes it you completely disillusions a large portion of it, which doesn't mean anything in itself because come uh 2022, it's just going to be a turnout thing. Probably the Republicans will probably clean up. 2024, the Republican will be running some psycho, and many people even disillusioned by the Democrats may just have to turn out once again and vote for whatever shit stain they put up there, whether that's Joe Biden and the cabal behind the throne that actually operates his hands and mouth, or Kamala Harris. But if uh if this really is like a disillusioning moment and causes the coalition to fracture up, and especially if that's seen in the 2022 midterms, it's an opening for movements on the ground, like labor movements, unions, the teachers unions especially, to start calling and saying, no, we demand Medicare for all, and start building power on that basis or something like it. And if enough movements like that start making those demands and are shut down by the Democratic Party, well, they may crumble in the face of that, or they may in the dissolution of a Democratic Party, as seen in the 2022 midterms, that could be an opportunity to form a new coalition and party. I mean, that weirder things have happened. This is pie in the sky, but best case.
Okay, well, that sucked. Thanks, Greg. And on that note, I think we're done for this week.
Yeah, I heard though from a little birdie that the annual Turkey Day extravaganza might be coming next week.
It's the only Thanksgiving that isn't canceled in 2020.
So we all know that for once you might not actually have to visit your awful family for Thanksgiving, but still you can visit with your chosen family, us, on Thanksgiving Day. So get your Hungry Man turkey dinner heated up in the microwave. Go ahead and fire up an episode of Seattle Sucks, and we'll all sit down at the table and have a wonderful Thanksgiving together. That we will say goodbye. Bye, everybody.
Bye.